starry skies above. Don't fence me in. Let me ride through the wide open country that I love. Don't.
When the Emperor Was Divine by Julie Otsuka, chapter titled In a Stranger's Backyard, and chapter titled Confession. Our Father, the Father we remembered and had dreamed of almost nightly all through the years of the war, was handsome and strong. He moved quickly, surely, with his head held high in the air. He liked to draw for us. He liked to sing for us. He liked to laugh. The man who came back on the train looked much older than his 56 years. He wore bright white dentures, and he'd lost the last of his hair. Whenever we put our arms around him, we could feel his ribs through the cloth of his shirt. He did not draw for us or sing songs for us in his wobbly, off-key voice. He did not read us stories. On Sunday afternoons, when we were bored and could think of nothing to do, he did not tie pieces of bent tin into twigs and put on shadow plays for us from behind hanging white sheets. He did not make us stilts. Of course, our mother was quick to point out we were too old now for stilts, too old to be read to, too old for shadow plays, and from behind hanging white sheets. Yes, 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 we replied. And too old to laugh? He never said a word to us about the years he'd been away. Not one word. He never talked about politics or his arrest or how he'd lost all his teeth. He never mentioned his loyalty hearing before the alien enemy control unit. He never told us what it was, exactly, he'd been accused of. Sabotage? Selling secrets to the enemy? Conspiring to overthrow the government? Was he guilty as charged? Was he innocent? Was he even there at all? We didn't know. We didn't want to know. We never asked. All we wanted to do now that we were back in the world was forget. In the beginning, he wandered slowly from one room to the next, picking up objects and looking at them in bewilderment, and then putting them back down again. I don't recognize a thing, we heard him whisper. In the afternoon, he lay down on the couch and let himself drift off into sleep, only to awaken moments later with a start, not knowing where he was. He sat up and shouted out our names, and we came running. What is it? We asked him. What's wrong? He needed to see us, he said. He needed to see our faces. Otherwise, we would never know if he was really awake. On the train, he told us later, he had dreamed again and again that he'd fallen asleep and missed his stop. He wore the same loose baggy trousers every day and was convinced that someone was watching the house. He did not like to use the telephone. He never knew who might be listening, or to eat out in public. He rarely spoke to anyone unless he was spoken to first. Why go looking for trouble? He was suspicious of everyone, the newspaper boy, the door-to-door salesman, the little old lady who waved to us every day as we passed by her house on our way home from school. Any one of these people, he warned us, could be an informer. They just don't like us. That's just the way it is. Never tell them more than you have to, and don't think for a minute that they're your friend. Little things, the barking of a neighbor's dog, a misplaced pen, an unanticipated delay of any sort, could send him into a rage. One afternoon, after a long wait at the bank, he pushed his way to the front of the line and began pounding on the floor with his cane. "I don't have all day," he cried out. We turned away and pretended not to know him. None of the other customers in line said a word. "You think they care?" he shouted at us as we slowly made our way toward the door. We covered our ears with our hands and kept on walking. He never went back to work. The company that had employed him before the war had been liquidated right after Pearl Harbor, and there was no job for him to return to. Nobody else would hire him. He was an old man, his health was not good. He had just come back from a camp for dangerous enemy aliens. And so he stayed at home day after day, poring over the newspaper with a magnifying glass and scribbling down words in a little blue notebook. Sometimes he went into the yard and watered the grass, or he swept off the front porch. And every afternoon, when we came home from school, he fixed us a snack, jelly and crackers, or a plateful of apples carefully peeled and sliced. He always seemed happy to see us. "So tell me the news," he called out to us the moment we walked through the door. We sat with him in the kitchen and talked about school, the weather, the neighbors, the same things we talked about before the war. Nothing more. He leaned forward in his chair as though we were listening, but no matter what he said, a moth flew into Miss Campbell's ear during dictation. Donald Hartsbecker has been grounded for life. His response was the same. Is that so? Always, it seemed, he had something else on his mind. Maybe he was thinking of our mother. Maybe he missed her and was hoping she'd come home from work soon. Maybe he was trying to imagine her at that very moment as she gazed back at her own reflection for the 100th time in the toilet bowl of some stranger. Still there. Or perhaps he was remembering the promise he'd made to her years before, right after they'd first married. You'll never have to work. And he felt bad that he hadn't come through. There were heavy blue veins around her ankles now, and her hands were red and rough. And every evening when she climbed up the front steps, her feet seemed to move more slowly than they had the evening before. Or it is possible that he wasn't thinking of our mother at all. It is possible he was troubled by something he'd read in the paper earlier that morning. Lend-Lease diapers used as turbans by African sheiks, or Jap emperor repudiates own divinity. And he'd had about as much news as he could take for one day. Birdsong grew faster and shriller, and the chill slowly lifted from the air. Our mother rose early every morning and made us breakfast, then tied a white scarf over her head and hurried off to catch the next bus. She wore a shapeless black dress, sensible shoes, no lipstick. In a large brown shopping bag, she carried an assortment of brushes and rags. Got to make it all shine. She moved briskly and did not complain. Be good, she called out to us on her way out the door. It was a relief, she told us years later, to wake up every morning and have some place to go. As the days grew longer and our father began spending more and more time alone in his room, he stopped reading the newspaper. He no longer listened to Dr. IQ with us on the radio. There's already enough noise in my head, he explained. The handwriting in his notebook grew smaller and fainter and then disappeared from the page altogether. Now, whenever we passed by his door, we saw him sitting on the edge of his bed with his hands in his lap, staring out through the window as though he were waiting for something to happen. Sometimes he'd get dressed and put on his coat, but he could not make himself walk out the front door. Every once in a while, we'd try bringing him his hat and inviting him to come out with us for a walk, but he just smiled and waved us away. You people go on ahead, he said. In the evening, he often went to bed early, at 7, right after supper. Might as well get the day over with. But he slept poorly and woke often from the same recurring dream. It was 5 minutes past curfew and he was trapped outside in the world on the wrong side of the fence. I've got to get back. He'd wake up shouting. You're home now, our mother would remind him. It's all right. You can stay. The first signs of spring, mild days, buds in the fruit trees, no more long lists of the dead. The mothers were all back in the kitchen now. The last of the fathers on our block, those who could, had come home. They were safe. The sun was in its place, there up above us, but not too high. Strength was slowly returning. Speech was beginning to come back. In the schoolyard, at the park, on the street, they were calling out to us now. Not many of them, just a few. At first, we pretended not to hear them, but after a while, we could no longer resist. We turned around and nodded, we smiled, and then continued on our way. For 2 weeks in April, the magnolia trees blossomed with pale white flowers, and the skies were blue and clear. Purple hyacinths and narcissus came up in the garden, and tall stalks of mint, and every evening at dusk we wandered out into the yard and watched the starlings gathering in the trees. At night we slept with the windows wide open, and in our dreams we could hear singing and laughter, and the endless turning of the leaves in the wind, and in the morning, when we awoke, for one brief moment we could almost forget we had ever been away. In May, when the heat settled in and the roses everywhere burst into bloom, we wandered the streets every day after school in search of the rosebush our mother had once planted in our front yard. At first we saw it wherever we looked, in the Gilroys' front yard, in the Myers, lying low among the rhododendrons in the prize-winning garden of Miss Mrs. O'Grady. But upon closer inspection, none of these rose bushes turned out to be ours. They were too big or too small, or their petals too pale, and after a while we gave up and turned our attention to other things. But we never stopped believing that somewhere out there, in some stranger's backyard, our mother's rose bush was blossoming madly, wildly, pressing one perfect red flower after another out into the late afternoon light. Chapter titled Confession. Everything you have heard is true. I was wearing my bathrobe, my slippers, the night your men took me away. At the station they asked me questions. Talk to us, they said. The room was small and bare. It had no windows. The lights were bright. They left them on for days. What more can I tell you? My feet were cold. I was tired. I was thirsty. I was scared. So I did what I had to do. I talked. All right, I said. I admit it. I lied. You were right. You were always right. It was me. I did it. I poisoned your reservoirs. I sprinkled your food with insecticide. I sent my peas and potatoes to market full of arsenic. I planted sticks of dynamite alongside your railroads. I set your oil wells on fire. I scattered mines across the entrance to your harbors. I spied on your airfields. I spied on your naval yards. I spied on your neighbors. I spied on you. You get up at 6. You like bacon and eggs. You love baseball. You make your coffee with cream. Your favorite color is blue. I crept into your house while you were away and sullied your wife. Wait, she said, don't go. I touched your daughters. They smiled in their sleep. I smothered your firstborn son. He did not struggle. I stole your last bag of sugar. I took a swig from your best bottle of brandy. I pulled out the nails from your white picket fence and sold them to the enemy to melt down and to make into bullets. I gave that same enemy your defense maps for free. The Boeing assembly plant is here, the oil refinery there. X marks the spot where they make the camouflage nets. I sent them aerial photographs of your major coastal cities. I radioed to his submarines the location of your troop ships. I leaned out my second-story window and signaled to his aviators with my red paper lantern. Come on over. I left my lights on during the blackout. I went into the yard and tossed up a few flares just to make sure he knew where to find you. Drop that bomb right here where I'm standing. I cut arrow-shaped swaths through my tomato fields to guide him to his next target. Straight ahead to the Air Force Base. I told him all about you. Tall and handsome, big eyes, long nose, broad shoulders, perfect teeth, nice smile, firm handshake, solid family man, a joiner, member of the Elks, the Kiwanis, the Rotary, the local Chamber of Commerce, mows his lawn every Saturday and goes to church on Sundays, pays his bills on time, enjoys the occasional night out with the boys, wife stays home, takes care of the kids. I revealed to him your worst secrets. Short attention span, doesn't always remember to take out the garbage, sometimes talks with his mouth full. Who am I? You know who I am, or you think you do. I'm your florist. I'm your grocer. I'm your porter. I'm your waiter. I'm the owner of the dry goods store on the corner of Elm. I'm the shoeshine boy. I'm the judo teacher. I'm the Buddhist priest. I'm the Shinto priest. I'm the Right Reverend Yoshimoto. So pleased to meet you. I'm the general manager of Mitsubishi. I'm the dishwasher at the Golden Pagoda. I'm the janitor at the Claremont Hotel. I'm the laundryman. I'm the nurseryman. I'm the fisherman. I'm the ranch hand. I'm the farm hand. I'm the peach picker. I'm the pear picker. I'm the lettuce packer. I'm the oyster planter. I'm the cannery worker. I'm the chicken sexer. And I know a healthy young rooster when I see one. I'm the grinning fat man in the straw hat selling strawberries by the side of the road. I'm the president of the Cherry Blossom Society. I'm the secretary of the Haiku Association. I'm the card-carrying member of the Bonsai Club. Such a delightful little people, everything so small and pretty. I'm the one you call Jap. I'm the one you call Nip. I'm the one you call Slits. I'm the one you call Slopes. I'm the one you call Yellow Belly. I'm the one you call Goop. I'm the one you don't see at all. We all look alike. I'm the one you see everywhere. We're taking over the neighborhood. I'm the one you look for under your bed every night before you go to sleep. Just checking, you say. I'm the one you dream of all night long. We're marching 10 abreast down Main Street. I'm your nightmare. We're bivouacking tonight on your newly mowed front lawn. I'm your worst fear. You saw what we did in Manchuria. You remember Nanking. You can't get Pearl Harbor out of your mind. I'm the slant-eyed sniper in the trees. I'm the saboteur in the shrubs. I'm the stranger at the gate. I'm the traitor in your backyard. I'm your houseboy. I'm your cook. I'm your gardener. And I've been living here quietly beside you for years, just waiting for Tojo to flash me the high sign. So go ahead and lock me up. Take my children. Take my wife. Freeze my assets. Seize my crops. Search my office. Ransack my house. Cancel my insurance. Auction off my business. Hand over my lease. Assign me a number. Inform me of my crime. Too short, too dark, too ugly, too proud. Put it down in writing. Is nervous, in conversation, always laughs loudly at the wrong time, never laughs at all. And I'll sign on the dotted line. Is treacherous and cunning, is ruthless and cruel. And if they ask you someday what it was I most wanted to say, please tell them, if you would, it was this. I'm sorry. There, that's it. I've said it. Now can I go?